My name is Roger Beyer. I live in South Clackamas County and I represent Oregon Small Woodland Association. This video is intended to provide information on the value to Oregon of the complete and coordinated forest fire protection system, and more directly, the value of the in-kind services provided by landowners. The map you are seeing is the Scotts Mills finger of the Beachy Creek Fire, which burned during the Labor Day fires in 2020. The thick blue line is Sawtell Road, and Cocal Corner is on the upper left section of the map, just out of the burned area. There are green and red dots scattered in and near the burn. The 8 red dots represent structures that burned, 7 homes and a shop. The dozens of green dots are where the homes are located that didn't burn. The thick yellow line indicates the fire line built in 3 days, completely by volunteers at no cost to the state. This represents about 7 miles out of the 31 miles of total fire line construction on the perimeter of this fire. There were almost no state resources available in this area, as they were all deployed in other sections of this fire or other fires. Without the hundreds of volunteers who stepped forward, this tragedy would have been much worse. Here's a short video which tells part of the story.
Now we continue to hear just amazing stories coming out of these fires. When the Riverside fire broke out last week, neighbors worked tirelessly to save their own community. Chriselle Kumwe was in Molalla earlier today and has the story of an incredible group with a very memorable nickname.
A community in Molalla can now get some sleep.
A typical day up here would start about 4 a.m.
because these volunteers stay awake.
Well, the first couple days there was no sleep for anybody around here.
When the fast approaching Riverside fire prompted a level 3 go now evacuation, they quickly moved their loved ones to safety.
There was a group of guys that said, no, there's still family property that we got to protect. And at that point, there was no other support.
At the time, resources were deployed to other places.
We weren't going to sit around and watch everything our ancestors have done up here just burn to the ground, so we just attacked it head on.
A grassroots movement of neighbors and family members came together.
And then the donations and the equipment and the local landowners and loggers just started showing up.
They had close to 80 volunteers help out on these hills outside of Molalla.
And we were punching fire lines. People were doing it by hand with equipment, whatever it came down to, and where they would go out and scout out to see where it needed to be so it wouldn't come back down the valley and take out all the homes and lands.
Most of the volunteers were born and raised on these hills. They have an intimate knowledge of the roads.
It was paramount to have that knowledge of how these roads connect, how the topography of the ground comes together in order to get fire lines cut where we needed them, send the resources where we needed them.
They believe they saved hundreds of homes. The community is thankful for their work. Shows of gratitude can be seen around town.
We're just good people that were doing what we needed to do in a time of need.
It's not a surprise. You know, these are guys that I played with in the mud. These are kids that I played with football with. Those guys over there were my mentors in life.
They've been referred to as the Hillbillie Brigade or the Molalla Militia. They are though reluctant to be called heroes.
It's a solid group of people, and I would just encourage everybody, take the opportunity to know your community.
Now a few people that responded. Ben grew up in the area, but has since moved to Missoula, Montana. He owns a truck with a 500-gallon tank pictured here. He packed it up, drove all night, and was here ready to work the second day. He spent the rest of the week here helping his old friends and neighbors. The tall one is Matt. He has never lived around here, but his grandmother's house was threatened. He left work as a professional firefighter in John Day and came to help. He also spent the week here volunteering his time while he could have been on a fire getting paid. Finally, we have Matt Myers. His home, along with his parents, his aunts, and his uncle's homes were being threatened. He took 2 weeks away from his job to help in the effort. When the rest of us needed to get back to work, he was appointed fire boss and stayed on the post even after the hired professional crews arrived from out of state. These are just a few of the people that gave time, money, sweat, and tears to help stop this fire when no government resources, which they had already paid for, were available. Now I'd like to summarize some of the in-kind equipment that was used in the effort. Farmers, contractors, local people all pitched in and provided fire trucks, tankers, pumps, and heavy equipment. When the call for help went out, About 35 fire trucks showed up. These ranged from commercial trucks to pickups with tanks and pumps. Many of the pickup systems were donated by a single individual. He's pictured here. It's Tom. He's a farmer and a diesel mechanic near Molalla. Using more than $10,000 of his own funds, he personally outfitted 12 pickups with tanks and pumps. It quickly became evident that we had fire trucks, but very little hose or nozzles. I called the local district forester to see if ODF could let us use some hose. There was none available. Again, when that word got out, a local company delivered 1,000 feet of hose and a box full of adapters, fittings, and nozzles. These items were donated at no cost and are now available for future use. To fill these fire trucks, tankers, and portable tanks, we needed a pumping system. Not one, but two volume pumps suddenly appeared at our water reservoir. To build fire line quickly, you need heavy equipment. One local D6 dozer was in the area and it was on the ODF contract list. It was deployed the first day. That was the extent of the state resources. Neighbors contacting friends and customers provided 7 additional Caterpillars and excavators by the next day. None of this equipment were listed by the state as in-kind resources, but they were here building fire line. Each piece of heavy equipment came with an operator, and we provided at least one ground person with each for navigation and safety. In 2 days, they built a line that extended from Butte Creek to nearly reaching the Molalla River. Logistically, ODF can tell you what it takes to run a camp on a large fire complex. For them, it requires dozens of personnel. A local landowner at Coco Corner has a shop next to the road. It offered a central location and a willing owner. They set up a kitchen with folding tables and chairs. Then other neighbors helping his staff went to work. Donations of food and supplies were soon flowing in, and they started providing 3 meals a day for the volunteers. This continued for about 10 days as the paid contractors replaced the volunteers. The location was also a logical spot for staging water and traffic control. The water tankers were parked here so the fire trucks could access them quickly and efficiently. When one was emptied, it was replaced by a full one. To help control access and traffic in the burn area, a resident began keeping track of all vehicles that passed the checkpoint. For safety, he recorded the names and license numbers so no one would be lost. What I have tried to describe is what happens with our complete and coordinated system of firefighting when the state resources have reached the breaking point. These are the in-kind services which local landowners provide when needed. Some have questioned the value and whether landowners who help pay the bill for firefighting should get financial credit for this. I suggest you ask the landowners whose homes were lost if they think landowners should receive a credit. How to calculate the credit is also a concern. What is the value of a resource you hope to never need, but when you do need it, it's available? It is not just the per hour cost of equipment and operators. That figure is easily calculated. It is the value of the men and equipment that the state does not need to provide to have these resources at the ready. In this small area of the Beachy Creek fire alone, well over $1 million worth of men and machinery, which was not on the ODF in-kind list, was donated for use. This same scenario was repeated by others across the landscape of Western Oregon in those trying days. To OSWA, trading the administrative prorate costs at the Department of Forestry's Fire Division for the in-kind services the landowners provide is a bargain for the state of Oregon.